Around 1000 CE, the total percentage of Earth's land surface under state control was 13%, totaling some 16 square megameters. As we cross 1000 CE in Afroeurasia, the Song dynasty is ruling in China, the Eastern Roman Empire lives on as the Byzantine Empire, and Islamic regimes ruled in Central Asia, the Near East, Arabia, and North Africa. 300 years later, in 1300 CE, and largely due to the Mongols, the total amount of land under state control had skyrocketed from 16 to 33 megameters, up to 25% of Earth's land surface. With time, this increased still more, with our modern world seeing 100% of Earth's land surface, 130 megameters, under state control. This video will consider, inexhaustively, the story of civilizations in Afroeurasia after 1000 CE, as well as the coming together of the Afroeurasian and American world zones, with our end mark being the year 1700, which is when the Industrial Revolution was stirring in Britain, ready to tumble humanity into threshold 8 of big history, modernity. Let's jump right into it. Starting in the east, in China, the Song dynasty entered the millennium in power, but in the early 12th century they were forced out of northern China by the Jurchen. The Jurchen Jin dynasty ruled in the north, while the Song ruled in the south, and then the Mongols came, first for the Jin dynasty, when Chinggis, called by some Genghis Khan, invaded in 1211 and captured their capital of Zhangdu near modern Beijing in 1215. In 1234, this time in the face of Chinggis' son Ogedei's invasion, the Jin dynasty was felled forevermore with the death of Emperor Mo in battle, one day after the suicide by hanging of the prior emperor, Emperor Ezong. Starting an assault on the Song starting in 1235 under Ogedei Khan and finishing in 1279 under Kublai Khan, the Mongol Yuan dynasty had captured the Song capital and conquered their empire. We'll return to the story of China when we discuss the Mongols. Moving now to the Western European part of the Afro-Eurasian world zone, the Western Roman Empire had fallen apart in the 5th century, leaving behind regional kingdoms, but the Eastern Roman Empire, in the form of the Byzantine Empire, lived on through 1000 CE until they fell to the Ottomans, who had started growing around 1300 and finally toppled the Byzantine capital of Constantinople in 1453. The Ottoman Empire was still kicking as we round 1700. Now let's move to the Islamic world, where numerous powers ruled. The unifying Abbasid Caliphate's power took a big hit by 900 CE, and regional powers such as the Samanids ruled. The Samanids fell right before the turn of the millennium in 999, and their territory was split by two Turkish dynasties, the Ghaznavids and the Karakhanids. The Ghaznavids lost the 1035 Battle of Nassa Plains and then the 1040 Battle of Dandanagan to the growing Seljuks, who established an empire which started declining in the 1140s and was replaced by the growing Khwarazmians by 1194. Despite the loss to the Seljuks in 1035, the Ghaznavid dynasty didn't end until 1186, thanks to the growing Ghurid Empire, which itself ended in 1215, thanks partly to the growing Khwarazmians, though the Ghurid dynasty continued to rule much of India and Iran, as well as southern Afghanistan, through the Mamluk dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate until 1290, when they were followed by the Khalji dynasty, then the Tughlaq dynasty, the Sayyid dynasty, and the Lodi dynasty, which takes us to 1526, which then had Babur defeat the Sultan of Delhi and establish what would become the Mughal Empire, which is around as we turn the year 1700. While the Ghaznavids fell early, the Karakhanids initially won battles against the Seljuks, before their western part became a Seljuk vassal in 1089, and the eastern Khanate soon became a vassal as well, but that was short-lived. The western Seljuk vassal Karakhanid Khanate then came under the Qara Qitai, who were invading the Seljuks from the east. And with the death of the Seljuk ruler Ahmad Sanjar in 1157, the already weakened Seljuk Empire fractured. The western Karakhanid vassals of the Qara Qitai fell to the Khwarazmian Empire, and then had all its leaders killed in 1212. The eastern Qara Khanate was toppled by rebels in 1211, then handed over to Kuchlug, the last Qara Qitai emperor, in 1214, and then the Mongols came for the Qara Qitai, ending their rule in 1218, and then invading the Khwarazmian Empire the following year. Let's now turn to the Mongols. The Mongols would come to be the largest contiguous empire to exist, and no empire yet has knocked it off that pedestal. Temujin was born in 1162. After Temujin's father, a minor Mongol chief, died, Temujin brought together a new Mongol confederacy. And in 1206, the Mongol tribal council acknowledged him as the great ruler, or Chinggis Khan. He promptly attacked the Central Asian Uyghurs and Tanguts, and shortly thereafter, the Jurchen-created Jin dynasty of northern China, which, as we saw, he captured their capital in 1215. In 1219, he invaded the Khwarazmian Empire, and 2 years later it was his. Chinggis split his empire into 4 khanates to be ruled by different khans and died in 1227. In 1229, his son Ogedei was voted by the Mongol council to be the great Khan, greater than the other Khans, and he then expanded the empire further. After Ogedei died in 1241, Khans started fighting and the system lost its uniformity, and the 4 khanates in China, Central Asia, and the northwest and southwest regions became separate, though allied, powers. In China, the richest of the 4 empires, there was more expansion under the Yuan dynasty before it fell in 1368 and the Ming dynasty was established, lasting until 1644, and then falling to the short-lived, never-stable Shun dynasty, and the Qing dynasty followed, taking us comfortably through the year 1700. Descendants of Chagatai, another of Chinggis' sons, took over the Central Asian part of the empire. A Turco-Mongol leader named Timur, who established the Timurid Empire, got going with conquest starting in 1363 and conquered most of the area of the already faltering and split in two Chagatai Khanate by 1369. The Timurid Empire was followed by smaller regional khanates shortly after Timur's death in 1405, such as the Khanate of Bukhara and the Khanate of Khiva, taking us across the 1700-year mark. The Ilkhans took over the southwestern realm of the previously unified Mongol Empire, and after the last Khan, Abu Sa'id Bahadur Khan, died in 1335, the Khanate disintegrated. Finally, the northwestern part of the Mongol Empire went to the Golden Horde Khanate, which lasted until Timur invaded in 1396, and the Khanate split into smaller Tatar Khanates. Of those, the Crimean Khanate and the Kazakh Khanate remained when 1700 arrived. In sub-Saharan Africa, starting in the east, the Red Sea trading state of Aksum had collapsed shortly before the turn of the millennium in 960 CE after a 3-century Dark Age. Along the East African coast, Swahili civilization established hundreds of competitive commercial city-states between 1000 and 1500 CE. The state of Congo grown rather powerful, and in 1665 the king's head was lopped off by the Portuguese, who took over much of the region. Now moving west along the Niger River in the Niger Delta, 250 BC saw the 80-acre walled city of Geni-Geno, which was devoid of occupants by 900 AD. The kingdom of Ghana had emerged by 300 CE and grew in power over the coming hundreds of years. By 1240, Ghana was incorporated into the Mali Empire, which fell by the late 15th century, with the Songhai becoming the next greatest regional power. The Songhai collapsed around 1591 due to a Moroccan invasion, and the successor states couldn't reach their level of power. Moving up north, in 1492, Spain connected Afroeurasia to the Americas, and unlike in prior cases of interaction between these two world zones, this time it stuck. The two existing empires in the Americas at the time were the Aztecs of Mesoamerica and the Inca of the Andean region of South America. By 1521, the Aztec were defeated, and the Inca fell next in 1553. The Spanish Empire remained as the year 1700 passed. The Portuguese Empire picked up slightly earlier than the Spanish one in 1415 and in North Africa. They grew their empire more across the world, significantly for the Americas in Brazil, and were still kicking in the year 1700. After Spain and Portugal, the Dutch got going and were still around by 1700. The French got started with their colonial empire a little later, but in 1605 they were off to the races with the establishment of Port Royal in what is now Nova Scotia. They too remained around as 1700 came and went. At the tail end of the 16th century, Britain got into the game of building their empire, and by 1700 they too remained. And to make an ill-inserted remark, 1700 is also shortly before the Russian Tsardom of Muscovy, which was already geographically massive, would turn into the First Russian Empire. By 1700, some things were shifting underneath the general rules of agrarian civilizations for the humans of Britain, and our story was about to drastically change as the Industrial Revolution started steering us into the modern world.